Welcome to the next edition of the SWBL podcast. I'm your host, Brian Benware, and we are joined today by two Hall of Famers, Scott Pohle, even though it says Kevin, it is Scott, and Gus Skibbe. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate it. Today's episode is presented by 1356 Public House, our presenting sponsor for season 20, our opening day sponsor, and they're going to host the Friday night social event. So if you are in the area, get over there to Big Ben 141, check out their huge menu, and they also have trivia nights on Wednesdays. So if you don't have anything going on, get over there, support our sponsor. We'd really appreciate it. But really, today is something pretty exciting for me. I've been looking forward to this podcast for a while now, but we're going to do an origin story on two of the SWBL greats. Gus started his career in 2005, season 3, and then Scott started his in 2007, just a few years later. So we're going to get into that, a little bit of their backstory, and then kind of the big news of the day, guys. So you guys have anything to add to the opening here, or want to just dive in?
Glad to be here, Brian.
Thanks for having us, Brian.
Sweet. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, yeah, let's dive in. So first off, how did you guys become friends?
Gus, do you remember when we first met?
I don't remember when we first met. I just know in 6th grade, I remember all of the cool kids at recess in 6th grade played basketball, and all the cool kids played basketball. And I got to imagine we met there because it was competitive, and that was where all like the friendships were formed. I'm maybe assuming that, I don't know, but maybe recess. Or were you in Mr. Rademeyer's homeroom?
Not homeroom, but I was on blue team.
Okay, yeah. We were on the same team.
And Edlo Dahman was my locker partner.
Really? Oh, okay.
That probably helped facilitate.
For sure.
Also.
And Edlo and I were good friends until he left to go to Dismet, which didn't you go there, Brian?
No. I'm not even from St. Louis.
Oh, okay, never mind. You're from
Kansas City. Where you live now.
That's right. But yeah, man, that's where our friendship started. And
so were you one of the cool kids playing basketball?
I like to say I was. Scott and Kevin were much cooler than I was, but
no.
I was, yeah. But
we used to play, there was like a bunch of us that would play, like it was a game called 21, which is like the individual had to get to 21, but anytime you got close, it just became like a war. And It was always like a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Well, sweet.
And then I feel like our friendship just flourished, and we played Pokemon a ton. Middle school, and
played video games.
Played video games. We had lots of sleepovers, and but ever since then, we've only gotten closer. Though I think the older you get, the more mature you are with your conversations, and you can dive a little deeper. And we've explored spirituality together and figuring out how to pursue Jesus together. So it's been a wild ride. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. Scott and I attend the same church.
Oh, nice.
So a little roundabout here, even though I haven't been around since 6th grade. So it's cool. I mean, right. I always talk about with this league and like the history behind it, and like being sort of an outsider, but just not being in that core group of people who grew up together, right? Like, even though, like you said, your relationships mature and you talk about deeper and more big picture life topics, like you still have that history, which is also just as cool. I wish that some of my friends from grade school like played in this league, because it makes it that much sweeter. So well, so then how did you guys like get into wiffle ball? I mean, I kind of assume with Gus, like how that started, and then therefore Kevin, but like, tell me the story of being introduced to wiffle ball, and then how you got started playing in the actual league, or was there a different league you played in first?
Did you call me Kevin?
No, you and Kevin.
Me and Kevin. I was gonna make it
first.
No, sorry. I was saying
Sam.
I was trying to be funny.
Sam was in 8th grade when the league started. I was in 4th grade. And I did not play the first 2 years of existence because one, I think Sam was embarrassed of me, because I was his younger brother, and it's not cool to hang out with your younger brother. So he didn't let me play for 2 years. And then I finally came into the scene in season 3, which I was paired with the best player in the league at the time, which was Brett. And we went 11-1. I think it was the only year there's ever been 12 games in a season. And then they're like, oh man, I can play with the older kids. So yeah, Sam definitely introduced me and has been the reason why I still play wiffle ball today, because he's the organizer, he's the go-getter, and I'm just kind of the guy that rides in the coattails of the last name Skibbe. So but Scott, you can share how you were introduced.
I remember I was, if you know the Skibbe's house, what would be equivalent to a basement, but it's kind of not a basement because of the way the layout is. And I remember sitting around the classic round table and being on the high chair and hanging out. I think it's probably from a sleepover. I was just over hanging out with Gus, and Sam came back with the parents, and they'd walked in from the garage, and Sam asked, hey, do you guys want to play in the wiffle ball league? And like, when you become friends with Gus, like, you're always playing some type of game, or there's like an adventure, especially during like a sleepover, you're doing something. And in the early years, all the stats and standings and rosters were all, Sam would hand write those out on poster boards and hang them in the game room. So when you're going to like pick out a game, you're like seeing all of like the past, at that time, 4 years. And like, we actually talked about it, and Gus would tell us like the stories of like, and it would be like super fun. So when he asked us, me and Kevin, to play, we were like really super excited. So
yeah, man, Scott and Kevin were the first 2 friends of mine in my generation of friends to join the league. So they definitely were great origins of the league with me and in our age group, and help form another side of the league. So
For sure. Well, and now, the rest of the league has you guys to thank, because you are in part of the front office. I know you had mentioned Sam and how much he organized, and he does a great job and a ton of work on it, but you guys are a part of the front office, and everything the way it's grown, you guys have had a hand in too. So if not for that season 5 and that intro by Sam just coming in the garage and saying, come play wiffle ball, that, who knows where we'd be. But, one thing that might be overlooked, and you guys had kind of mentioned it a little bit about, again, your rookie year being 2005 and then your rookie year being 2007, but you both won championships your rookie seasons, which not a lot of people say anymore.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. You both won championships in your rookie year. And Gus, hate to say it, but that was also your last championship. Was
One with Scott. Yep.
one with
2007.
Scott. So yeah. So yeah, Gus, you won in 05, 06, and 07. So 3 straight.
Yep.
And then Scott, you won 07, 08, had a little break, then 11, which was actually the last year prior to the franchise era starting. And then you won again in 2019 with the Yankees, captaining the Yankees. So, going back a little bit to those early days, and even though you had a ton of success, I'm curious what it was like playing with, Brett and Bertram and Sam, like during their heydays of wiffle ball. Not that Sam's really not any good anymore, or even Brett, but I've heard stories of how good and how dominant they were back then. So what was it like kind of coming into the league with those guys?
do you want me to answer that first, Gus?
Sure. Yeah.
I would just say, like, I mean, back then, like, not that we're tainted now, but like back then it was very just pure. Like, it wasn't like we're just so, like, I mean, relatively, like, we were just a lot younger. And at that time, like the wiffle ball league, it was just fun to just be a part of a wiffle ball league that played throughout the summer. and that it was just like, hey, like you get a text like, can you play today? And of course you have like not really much going on.
Yeah.
And you're like, of course I do. And it was a little bit unique because my rookie year, I think I missed like probably 4 or 5 games, or three or four games, because of just you playing like sports that you have already commitments towards. But to answer the question, going back to that, I would just say it wasn't like you were being like, oh, like this lure. It was just like you just played and you're like, dang it, these guys are good. Like,
Yeah.
but that was back too, where it's like you didn't have a strike zone. The fences were a lot shorter. There wasn't a pitching mound. It was just like you were pitching with the slant of the hill. So you're like pitching upwards,
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was just in a little bit way, like there's not as many rules, a lot more freedom, way more heavy towards the hitters. And yeah, I think it was just a little bit more pure. Even though I played a year or two with Birchman in the league, I don't really remember him as much, because I think that was probably when he was starting to tail off.
Yeah. And I mean, I played 2 years before Scott, and right in Bertram's best years. And a lot of people in the league can't say they played with him, but he just had the smoothest swing. I mean, it was just a pretty swing. And I would say him, like Derek Cornell, John Callaway, they've just got pretty swings. And it's just the lefty pretty swing, but Bertram would just mash the ball. And I remember he would hit balls over the neighbor's house. And we've hit a few that have hit the roof, but like his went over the roof. I mean, he just hit the ball so hard. And yeah, it was fun to play with, all the old guys. And it's so interesting, because it's been so long since we played a summer league, and there's parts of that I miss, just because you see everybody more often. But the one thing I do not miss at all about that is subs. And constant, every single game there was usually a sub that played, and it kind of ruined it a little bit, but it was just all we knew is get subs, that we need lots of subs. And like Edlow was a sub the first 5 years of wiffle ball existence. And even before Kevin and Scott played, and I didn't ask him to play, I asked the Pohles to play, even though he was a sub before that. So just funny memories. But
He's been getting overlooked since he started.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
Oh, poor Edlow.
But
let's talk about that season 5. We kind of mentioned it, but so I was looking at some of the stats, and like kind of where you finished. So you were pre-ranked 7th. We figured out, which is pretty crazy to think. I mean, out of 8. So let's keep that in mind. And then to me, it looked like going into what would have been the playoffs, you were like about a 4 seed. There were a couple people with the same record. You just had a few less runs, and I assumed that was the tiebreaker maybe back then. So I kind of assumed that, but statistically, you guys were kind of middle of the road. You weren't terrible, but you weren't really in the top 5 of really any category. So what do you guys remember kind of about that season, about winning that championship, and kind of how that propelled going forward for the next few years?
We were young and very skinny at the time, and I know I still am. Scott's not as skinny as I am, but we weren't home run hitters at all. By no means. Like, we were nowhere near the top 90% of the league in home runs. And I know, like, thinking now, like, yeah, we hit a lot of home runs, but we did not back then. And we took advantage of the not having pitcher's poison. It was constant: hit a single, hit at the opposite field, the runner scores, hit a single, hit it to opposite field. And Scott and I were just good at that. And it really didn't click until the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And when the playoffs finally hit, we were just on fire, hitting the ball in places where people weren't. And we just rode that to the championship. And yeah, it was great.
I remembered the one, you're just kind of like flying by the seat of your pants, like just like, especially the first year. We were talking before we start hit live, like in practice, me or Kevin were not good. Like we were not good at all. And kind of like your classic, like you play baseball and it doesn't translate, which we've seen a lot in the league. And I remember the championship game. I texted Sam. It was actually Brett and Craig. No, it was. Let me look at
Jeff and
that.
Craig. Jeff and Craig or Brett and Andrew? Brett and Andrew. Andrew was the one throwing fast.
Oh, he said Bertram and Craig.
Oh, okay.
So it was Bertram and Craig, who were 7-3. I'm just looking at the stats right now. Had a plus 34 run differential. They had won 6 going into the playoffs straight. And I don't know how, but we were the home team, Gus.
Really?
And at least that's how I remember it.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember us hitting like a walk-off.
Oh, yeah. A single to right field or something.
Single to right field. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't know how we did that. I think we did the playoffs differently back then. On like how seeded happened. I think it was like rock, paper, scissors, or like a coin flip, maybe. I don't know. When Sam watches this, he'll correct it. But
yeah.
but yeah, I remember like hitting like, because it was 2-man, like that was it. It was just 2 batters. And so like you hit and you would have like Gus would hit and it would be a double or single, and then we'd just be like, hit Oppo, baby, hit Oppo. Like, because they weren't playing that way, and we just kept doing that. Like, that's how we ended up winning the championship. And yeah, I mean that was even before a trophy. So you're just like, all right, nice.
Yeah.
We were talking about Craig. Craig was the one pitching, and he was just throwing gas. And since we're the young kids, we said no words. And no one said a word. Yeah, but Craig's just throwing gas. But there was no ball. There was no walks, or was there walks? There was no walks. So
no,
because there's no strike zone in season 5, or maybe there was. I can't remember. But we just waited for our pitch and took it to the opposite field.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump ahead just a touch. I want to talk about season 9. So 2011, the last year before the franchise era started. I can't say this was necessarily your greatest seasons individually, but you two combined, this might be the top when you consider that you were the interim commissioner that year, Gus, and you won the Triple Crown and the MVP. And then Scott, you won Cy Wiffle, Gold Hands, and you won the championship. So that was a pretty crazy year for the two of you combined, even though I don't think you played together that year. What do you guys remember about that year and right before the franchise era kind of started, that last season kind of capping that old era off?
I'll start first, Gus. That's a very controversial year.
Is it? Oh, I'm glad I brought it up.
To be fair to the history, yes, it is. I'll get to that because that's towards the end. But
at the second base with John Callaway. Okay.
Oh boy.
But Gus, that was the year that me and you both did Insanity that summer.
2011. It was, summer after our freshman year of college.
Yeah. So
we were at the top of our game.
Man, we both, the backstory is we both wanted to like try to build muscle and get fit for the year. And so like we bought a Insanity, which is a 60-day like burner. It's not for bulk at all. So me and Gus are like about as thin as the wind could blow us over. And
we're drinking protein shakes, thinking it's gonna
we went to GNC, we got some protein and like, but that's probably one of the best shapes I've ever been in. Just like that really worked, by the way. Shout out to Insanity. I would say, to be fair too, that was probably not to be mean to a lot of the players that year, but from a talent across the board perspective, I don't know if that was necessarily like I probably had no business winning Cy Wiffle, but I think from what I remember when we were discussing it with Sam, it was like I was the second best pitcher and Gus was the first, and Sam's like, we can't give Gus all of the awards for the year. So because
That's how it went.
because it was second, I got Cy Wiffle. And gold hands, I don't know why. I think there actually could be statistics to back that up.
Yeah.
But maybe
But-
before we go to the end, you can go and
I
talk
think that,
about.
yeah, the funny part about that is you call me the interim commissioner. Sam was still the commissioner. He was in New York, but he was still the commissioner. He watched every single game on his laptop. I would have to set it up and he would watch every single game. And he confirmed, like double check the stats. He did everything still. All I did was set up a computer screen. And I had to text the teams, but
Yeah. What was he doing in New York?
he was his ex-wife was doing an internship or something in New York.
So he was up there.
So he was living with her, yeah,
Okay.
up there. But yeah, so he was the commissioner. But
I was back too when we took stats. It was a clipboard, a piece of paper, a pencil, and like the
Tallies.
names, and you would just tally like
Mhm.
boom, boom, boom. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So errors were really discretionary to whoever was doing the scorekeeping.
it still is discretionary to everyone.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if we kept errors back then.
Yeah,
it was,
we did.
I would imagine you had to if you did a gold hands of
Yeah.
some sort,
It
or
was just-
at least put outs.
the stats are so much more beefier now than what they were, you know.
Mhm.
It was-
Cool. Well, so now after that season, we went to the franchise era. So how, just briefly, like how have you seen the league evolve from the previous eras into what is now the franchise era? I mean, you both started franchises, the Yankees, the Royals. So how have you kind of seen that transition into the kind of style we play now? Was it a big jump, like from the old version to the new version?
I can answer that first, Gus.
Go ahead.
I would say like that year, so that would have been after season 9, so that would have been 2011, so 2012.
Yep.
That's when the league really had to like kind of take a step back and like realize like, hey, we're not high school or middle schoolers anymore.
Yep.
You know, we're in college. You guys are out of college, getting real jobs, and summers are becoming, I guess, less convenient. And so there was a lot of talk about like, how do we keep the longevity of the league? And that's where, just through a lot of conversations, the idea of the franchise era began. And I remember sitting at the same round table that I was sitting at when Sam walked in and asked if we wanted to be part of the football league. And it was me, Gus, Paul, Spencer.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was the Indians captain, wasn't he?
Oh, you're right. You're right.
And we all four were sitting around the table. And God love him, Paul goes, I'm the worst one here, which was true at the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm the worst one here. I kind of deserve, if we're going to do draft style, because we're all friends. I mean, that's the core of the leagues, we're friends. And so we went about it as trying to like be somewhat fair on like, how do we do that? And you had like a list of names, because I think also, was that the year where we did like tryouts at Carmen Trails to get like a pool of players?
It was, but we were only going to take like 1 or 2 players.
So pretentious of us.
Yeah. At a tryout. I mean, there was kids coming out of the woods, like trying it out. There was like probably 100 kids there, young kids, like kids that are a few years younger than us, but there were so many kids, and had tryouts on the blacktop. And who was, we're going to say the same person, but who was the best person that we did not keep? Like, who was the best person there by far pitching? You remember who it was?
No,
Barrett's dad?
no,
Matt Eplin. Do you remember Matt Eplin?
I didn't. I do remember Matt Eplin. This is starting to jog my memory, but I'm
He
really
was the
shocked.
craftiest pitcher, and just because he wasn't friends with anybody, we did not keep him in the league.
We are jerks.
We are jerks. We are jerks. But that's where Jackson came in during that time. He was there at tryouts. But yeah, that was a very pretentious of us.
I mean, I remember we were like, just looking back on that, that's like a cringeworthy thing that we did. But I
But yeah,
remember
going back, what Scott was saying about the round table. So Paul said he was the worst, and so he got the first like pick, and it wasn't picks. It was like who's going to be paired with who, like the tier 2 of players. And Chris Metter was at the top of that tier 2, and
everybody wanted Chris.
And everybody wanted Chris. So Paul was paired with Chris, and that was when the Rays, their dynasty for the next 3 years began. Was because of that one conversation, and then they won the next 3 years, and then
didn't we do it like he got first draft pick, got Chris, and then he got like the first next pick also. I think we did it that way. So then he picked Derek
Thompson.
So, I mean, who knew that the very next year Paul was going to be home run king and then just go on like a tear for the next 3 years and continue. Yeah. So I remember that year. It'd be interesting to hear, Gus, who you drafted. I remember I got Sam Bakula. I remember getting a text before Sam being from Sam and us being like, we're going to be on the same team. It's just who's going to be a third. And then I drafted Jackson, but Jackson was out of town that summer. And so then we got Craig Boyd. And
that's right.
That was right. Sam and Craig Boyd, and just no pitching at all.
Yeah.
Fun year.
I wanted Edlow, and I remember we were kind of a pair, and so I got Edlow first, and then second was the last pick was Will Rath, I remember. So we were a solid team.
Yeah.
Solid team. So
sweet. Well, that kind of takes us into, the franchise era. And really, I want to start focusing more on the Yankees because the news of the day, obviously, is Gus signing with the Yankees on a max 10-year deal.
Woo!
So not really a surprise to anybody, maybe the deal, but how, I got a couple questions around this. First, Gus, why did you go ahead at this point and disband the Royals? Because now the Yankees are one of only 3 of the original franchises left. You got the A's, and the Rockies, and then that's it. All the other original franchises have been disbanded. So what went into your decision to kind of move on from the Royals? And then we'll get into some other stuff about the signing.
To be honest, I don't like being a captain. I don't really like making decisions. The one thing I did not like about our situation, every year we fell in this situation, was always trying to find a 4th person, and the turnover for that 4th spot was just, it kept on going. And I didn't like someone had to leave or couldn't come back, and it was just constant finding people, and I was not a fan of that. And that's one. 2, we were cursed, and I don't believe in curses, but that's the closest to belief in a curse is the Royals just being a team and me winning again. It's been 15 years. I haven't won in 15 years. Like I needed to leave. I need to leave. We've had 2 10-0 seasons. We're the best. I think our stats back this up of our regular season record, but we're the best regular season record team ever. I think I looked at it, we were 65-25. The closest were the Brewers. I know they were like 63-28 or something. But I needed a change. And usually the people that leave the Royals, the next year they win a championship, which has happened to Spencer and Edlow and Will. And so Ty and Sam will probably win a championship this next year or in the future. But I don't want to call me the curse. I'm going to say the Royals are the curse. But thirdly, I've always wanted to play again with Scott because we haven't played together since season 5. And I've never played with Kevin before. And both of them are best friends of mine. I really want to, have fun with my good friends and play with them. So, that's kind of my reasoning behind it.
Okay. Well, so Scott, then tell me a little bit, like, how did it transpire signing Gus? How long maybe was this in the works that at some point maybe this would happen?
I don't know if there was ever like a turning point. I think there was just always like, after every year in the hot tub or the side conversations, there was probably always like, will we ever get to do this? Like, will we ever get to play with each other ever again? And like, it was hard because you see like some teams like would fold and then they would combine and it'd be like, oh, like, dang it. Like, would that ever present itself, And we haven't had, from the Yankees perspective, a lot of turnover over the years. I mean, that's something that, like, I think as a captain, I was always pretty proud of. It was like, there was some good, like, camaraderie and loyalty with the Yankees. And I mean, we're the best up and down team ever. You just never know what you're going to get. But it just was the right time. It was the right time. John made a decision last year, which turned out to be a great decision for him. And he's starting a new franchise, and that kind of circulated as he was doing that. You start thinking about like people playing with their friends, and like what I've absolutely wanted to figure out a way to like sign Gus and Jackson. Oh my gosh, yes. Like, oh my gosh. But like, that never was a discussion. And when John told me about not coming back to the Yankees, in that same conversation, we were also talking about him starting a new franchise and like him kind of asking me, would the front office or would Sam even allow that? That was also at the same time that the front office had even mentioned like, there's like eras of friends that all are kind of on the same team with each other. You got kind of like the Brewers and the Expos and the Marlins, and then you have like the Twins, the A's, the Yankees, etc. And there was John's graduating class was kind of like scattered between all of them. And so in that same time frame, you had the front office had like, we had brought up like, like, when will that age group ever get like to have a team to bring more of their age group friends into the league? And so like just kind of timing, like all of that was talking about at once. And so when that started talking for me, I was thinking, this is a really good time for that the fourth player to come on the team for Gus. And I can't say that we've been colluding for years because none of it was really serious. It was always just like, we want to play on the same team together. And every time we would have like interviews for Sam to like fill out the captain interviews, like it'd always be like somebody else. I was always like, I want to play with Gus. And then Gus would be like, I'll play with somebody else. But it'd be like, well, so there was, I mean,
Well,
it's been talked about since 2005, always coming back. And every year it's been talked about.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you remember, and I think I texted it to you guys, but I took a picture last year before anything was announced and anything was certain, but I got a picture of you and Kevin and Gus in left field. And you guys were talking and I was like, hey, and I took a picture and I was like, oh, this may be a little foreshadowing, but yeah. So, well, you talked about who you wanted to play with and I know you're excited for it, but Gus, you've been playing with Sam for however many years now. What's it going to be like not playing with him now?
yeah. So kind of going back up to, I think 2015, whatever season the Cardinals, when they were like, they're not coming back, him, Brett, Nick Lape, whatever year that was.
2015.
I think it was 2015.
Yeah.
That's when they decided they're not going to come back. And just like Scott's talking about with timing, that was the perfect opportunity because Sam and I have always wanted to play together also since we won the championship in 2004. And it worked out where that's when the Rays were disbanding too. So were the Cardinals. And we're like, so I talked with Chris because Chris didn't really have a team. So Chris and I both decided, and Edlo and Spencer will tell you elsewise that I kicked them off the team. But Chris and I said, we can do this 3-way thing where I'll get Sam. I can bring Ty Butler on the team, but I need a place for Edlo and Spencer to go to keep the league functioning. And that's when they became that trio of now 3 championships, which, people leave me and they win. So, but yeah, it was a hard decision then. But so coming back, I played with Sam the past 6 years, I think. I know I just signed a 10-year deal, but I will tell you, it's not forever with Sam being gone out of my team.
God, please don't sign to the Yankees too.
I'm not saying I'm going to be on the Yankees for 10 years. I know my contract says that, but you know how contracts are with a wiffle ball league. It's not always the same, but I'm glad to be on the Yankees. But I did tell Sam, I texted him after I signed the deal. I felt sadness, because it's your brother, the person that is your blood that you've been playing with for so long. It's sad. But it's not forever. I could see us definitely joining back up in the future. So we'll see.
Sweet. Well, you mentioned the 10-year deal again, and with the assumption you'll be there for 10 years. So Scott, what are your expectation, for the next, I don't know, however many years, like just for the years to come for the Yankees?
I hope that we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's just a big shift in your team makeup.
I will say this. I will say this. This is going to be a controversial statement. I look forward to, how do I say this politely? A Skibbe being on my team so that the Yankees aren't getting wrunged out all the time. Probably from our history, probably by our own doing, but I would say in the past probably 5 years that we have, in my opinion, in one of those years at least, should have been up for at least franchise of the year of just contributions, being level-headed people playing. And so I just look forward to having Gus on our team, and I don't know, it's just from a persona, it probably actually hurts us, but I don't care. So I don't really have expectations because the league is going to be so competitive next year and the year after, and it's just about, can you get hot at the right time? And you just never know. And especially with me and the Yankees, 1 year we're good and 1 year we're trash. So yeah.
You think about Jackson. So really, Jackson's gone, I'm in. If you look at stats, Jackson's a good hitter and he's a great pitcher. And almost our stats are very similar. So if you like look at pure stats, like the team makeup is not that much different. Jackson and I could be traded out. We're similar stat wise. The only difference is I'm really good friends with the guys on the Yankees, and I think that maybe play more into the camaraderie. I don't know, but Jackson's well liked. But I'm just
Yeah,
trying to.
I wouldn't say like there's a drop, and you still have, 3 of your 4 from last year on the team, and I looked a little bit into, Kevin and Sam's careers, but Kevin started, like you said, the same year you did. He actually, not to bring it up, but he outperformed you in almost every category.
Oh yeah.
It was really close. Like most of them were like Kevin Scott, Kevin Scott, Kevin Scott. And then, Sam began the year after. So other than maybe the Orioles, like you guys have probably the most longevity, the most seasons under your belt of any team. When you combine the 4 of you.
That's true.
So, you've got that going for you, but I would agree. I don't think there's any drop off, losing, going from Jackson to Gus. I mean, you guys are usually one, top 3 for Cy Wiffle and all of that. So, and everybody, you're a top tier team, and it's a scary roster when you look at it on paper too. So,
Yeah, we all the other thing is Jackson didn't really fit the look of the Yankees. Now we have 4 really tall, lanky players. And
I've always said you should be the Red Sox, just like the Green Monster, because it's just height everywhere in the field.
Now we're all like, we're just going to be a presence of intimidating other teams with our size. So that's our goal.
You need a bus like
purely height, no muscles, but purely.
But you need like the bus, like at football games, and you have the biggest guy on your team get off for intimidation, but it's just the 4 of you walking out onto the field. Just like roll up in a Jeep or something, just walk out onto the field.
It would be sad if I would say I would say if Gus left and we hadn't won a championship, or if we disbanded, we hadn't won a championship, I think I would be sad. It would be like, dang, but that's with everybody. So.
That's how I felt when I joined Sam, I was like, and the league was like, this is unfair that Sam and Gus are joining and we don't win. So anybody can win. Anybody can win.
Well, do you think so? You think joining the Yankees, you think that's what it's going to take to get the Yankees, back over the top and win another championship?
Well, I think that's the Yankees have already proved that they are winner. They won 2 years ago. So I'm joining a winning franchise that has won. And if you replace Jackson with me, it's not really much of a difference. So, well, I think we'll make a shot.
Maybe a better question would be to maybe steady the roller coaster. You had mentioned the up and down. Like, do you think maybe this signing plays a different role and that goes forward?
I would say that's a good question. I would say potentially. I mean, I would say like if you just take me and Gus and you look at, don't take my pitching stats because those are all over the board. But like if you take hitting and you probably look at our past 3 or 4 years, like they're genuinely pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So maybe having another person like that, because my biggest mistake as a manager, hands down, was for some reason I've apologized profusely over the years to Jackson about this. It's just like, I don't know why we never allowed him to hit. Why in my head I thought that whatever. We don't have to get into it. It's not that podcast. But I would just say like Jackson's rise over the past few years, like it's kind of going like this, And so other players have had, like Sam had a down year, Kevin's on the rise. And so it's just like, if you have another person on your team that's consistent, you would hope that there would be more consistency. We have. So not to jinx us, but.
Well, let's move into our last topic, and it's a topic that I'm calling it the unknown. It's 5 questions that Scott and Gus were not privy to before we started recording, and I'm just going to shoot them out. And whoever wants to speak first can go. If you're both thinking, I can answer too to fill some space. But some of them are kind of, layups, but then hopefully other ones are a little bit more fun. So you guys have played in the league for a long time, as we talked about. What is your fondest memory from the past 19 seasons of the Skibbe Wiffle Ball League?
Fondest memory.
I know you have so many to choose from. It's crazy.
I mean, I don't like the cop-out answer is like what everyone will say is like the friendships, the memories, like that.
Yeah.
So,
But I want you to pick one moment that sticks out to you. Maybe it's not your favorite in the end. Maybe, in a week you'd be like, oh, I should have said this one. But what's one that jumps out at you?
I mean, it's hard to. I mean, okay. Can I have two? Can I have two?
Yeah, you can have. Yeah, it's your podcast.
One of my fondest memories is the first year the skills challenge happened was so pure in how it happened. There was no like huge like now there's like these expectations on what it should be like.
Yeah.
Even the year after the first year of the skills competition, I think a few guys tried to be like the chairs of it, and they just like fell apart, and we didn't really have it. And the first year was just so fun for the skills competition. That's like a pretty fond memory of just like the league and like how that happened. I think we turned on the lights, and there was just like a lot of like firsts that year for doing that. That was a ton of fun.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody was just so hyped. It was like the greatest time of everybody's life.
Yes.
Oh, that was really fun.
Yeah.
I would say speaking of firsts and trying to reinvent it every year, the first year of the hot tub. And if you don't know what the hot tub is, it's at the end of every season, there's a group of guys that stay after to help clean up. And usually at the end, we haven't had it in the past few years because I've had to go back to Kansas City. But there's a group of guys that sit in my parents' hot tub and just reminisce on the season, reminisce on things that'll happen in the future. And there's a picture of all of us that my mom or dad took, but there's like 11 guys in the hot tub the first year, and we're just sitting there drinking and just talking and having fun and laughing. And it's those memories that I cherish, and it's fun. So
Spencer brought that up too. That was what he had mentioned.
Oh, it was.
I asked him, he just said it's one of the things he looks forward to, and he thinks in 30, 40 years those will be the things he remembers the most. Yeah.
Or secondly, I don't remember what year this happened, but after the season was over, we decide we're gonna play a game again, but we're all barefoot. And then my dad turns on.
Dude, that was my other one.
That was. My dad turns on September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. And there's a video of it. We're all just dancing and clapping in the air. And it's just like, it's just a pure moment that it only happens randomly. So that was awesome. That was a good moment. And it's funny that all these moments have nothing to do with wiffle ball. But that's kind of
really great though. So
it makes it great.
Yeah. All right. So I want you to each give me a player that's going to take the next step in their career.
My next step. Well, my first initial inclination is Chris Vorbeck, but I don't even know if he's going to play this year because apparently he's having a kid. But I would say him. For someone to come in and do that well in this environment, really not knowing many people, was very impressive. And he has a great swing. He's got a perfect attitude about playing. He's not cocky in any way. He just kind of plays, and that's it. But I could have really seen him take it to the next level and possibly be a MVP candidate, like Corey McCarthy. Him being his second year, and he kind of just went on fire last year. So
yeah, no sophomore slump for him.
But I could definitely see him doing well. Scott can answer, but since Chris isn't going to be there, I'm going to think of another person.
I kind of thought of two. I thought of I think this I thought of Derek Cornell, because this will be like the first year that he has like a true team, like it's his friends. He's going to have a huge role, and I think that there's potential that he takes like the next step in just proving his consistency and what he can bring to the table on the left side. So that's going to be a really interesting team, two lefties. And then the other person I was thinking was somebody in the Marlins, because somebody in the Marlins needs to take the next step for the Marlins to keep rising as a team. And who that is,
It's not Luke. It's not Luke, so.
Luke's proven himself. He needs to get back to it. I feel like Luke's proven himself enough. But
I've been high on Luke for so many years. I put him in my MVP considerations, and he just always lets me down. So my other person, thinking about it more, it's got to be of the Astros. It's got to be Cam Smith. And just playing with him at national tournaments, he's good. And it's so surprising he is just kind of middle of the road and has been the past few years. So a breakout is on the way for his hitting. And that might be what the Astros need to succeed. So
yeah. Awesome. What's a story that's not getting enough buzz going into season 20? Storyline of some sort. We had a few last year going into season 20 or season 19, and we've got a few that I can think of, but what do you guys think? And I can answer if you want.
I think the buzz will catch up, I think, as we get closer to the season. But
yeah,
I think one that deserves a lot of, speculation and thought is this Orioles team. Like their starting four is Peter, PG, Sam, and Brett. Like all have been top 2 MVP, like close, like really good players. And they're pitching. PG, Brett, and Sam all can pitch really well. I mean, I feel like they're going to be very good, and a lot of people don't see that, or at least I feel it that way. So
maybe there's a bit of the, Sam always said there was a curse around the Cardinals, and maybe there's a bit of that undertone with Brett and Sam joining together again. So I don't know.
I don't know.
To be said on that too, of just like, it's not, I don't know how well known that is. Like, it's not like
that's the top 14. That's their team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's all kind of like piecemealed, and there's a couple of things put on Instagram about it. So I don't know how many people know about it, but I'd probably agree with that. I mean,
all the signings have been done and it's been announced. It's just, no one has really said like, oh, like this is their team. That's a good team.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I don't know. I haven't, to be honest, been following a lot of like hot topics throughout the league, but I feel like this is going to be two things. This is going to be a really competitive year this year, top to bottom. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how pitching is affected by a consistent gun pretty much the whole time. Like, we think we know what it's going to be like coming into this year, but who knows? Like, who knows who's affected by that the most,
Yeah.
So
you have no idea.
Change.
Yeah.
It's going to level the playing field out for everybody, which I really like.
Yeah.
Because pitchers that are known to pitch slower now have the opportunity to pitch a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Pitchers that pitch fast now have to pitch slower. So I like it.
Give me a hot take for season 20. So something outlandish, but that could conceivably happen.
Do you have ones that have already been said?
No, I haven't asked. So I try to change up a lot of the questions each time so that new guests each time won't necessarily know the question. I've asked the fondest memory question a couple times just because I've had, a good amount of history on as with the guests, and it's interesting for me, but no, I haven't asked this question yet. So
I think I have a couple. One is the Twins don't make the playoffs.
I was going to
Two,
say the Rockies. That would have been my hot take. I mean, it maybe not be as surprising, but they're the only team that has always been in the playoffs.
Speaking of that, hot take, Kyle Breida choosing the Lake over
Ooh,
season 20.
yeah.
I don't care it's about football, but it's just kind of surprising. Like, it's like season 20. Like, you feel like that's kind of like a fun year to be a part of.
Yeah.
Choosing the Lake over that.
you do what you love. I love it. I love that he did that. If that's what he wants, I support that. Why not?
Oh, I support it. It's surprising.
And second, I think John Callaway wins MVP.
Is that a hot take? Like, is it
He's
hot
never
takes
been, he's never been in the All-Star game. So if he wins MVP, that's really hot.
He didn't make the All-Star game last year?
He's never been in the All-Star game.
Is John, here's the question, is he more of a second half player though? Like, because that hurts you in All-Star. Like, if you have like a beginning, but then you really tear it up the last 5 games, then you're not an All-Star. I don't know. It's surprising to hear.
And being a captain, I think he's a good cat. I think he's gonna be a good captain. He loves the league. He advocates for it well. And I think he's, he'll be feeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I have anything different, Benware.
Okay. Outside of wiffle ball, what do you guys enjoy spending your time on the most? I want some of our listeners who may not come to the league as often to get to know you guys a little bit more as people too.
Why did you smirk?
Me?
I don't know. It surprised me too.
Well, my initial reaction is two things that I really enjoy doing right now. One, I like playing Rocket League with Kevin Pohle. Two,
I can attest to that. They do it all.
Two, I really like learning about the cryptocurrency NFT world. I think it's super interesting, and that's something that I have enjoyed learning more about in the past few months. And then 3, my whole time every day is spent with my children. So I love my kids a lot.
Which
So,
one's your favorite?
probably Jane for sure. People ask me that question, like Jane's easy. She's 3 years old. I can talk to her, but my 1-year-old son, he cries at everything. He's cute as can be. I love him, but he can be annoying sometimes. That's
I didn't actually think you'd answer.
Brian. What about you? What kid is your?
No, I'm not answering that question.
Okay.
I don't know. They equally make me happy in different ways because Amelia's 5 and Brewer's 2, but his personality is like he's really ornery and it makes me laugh all the time. But then Amelia is so sweet and warms my heart. So it depends on my mood probably which one's my favorite. If it's close to bedtime and Amelia's fighting me, it's definitely Brewer at that time. But it changes. So
Thanks for the honest answer.
yeah.
I would say for me, I love traveling. Like doing that. I also enjoy the NFT, learning about the NFT space. A few of us are in a text message together, which is fun. Also, Spencer's influencer, getting to influencer
What?
status. Yep.
I don't know anything about crypto. I'm like the old man in the group who still puts money in a coffee can and hopes, you know,
Yeah, there's no interest there, so that's bad. That's a bad move with your money.
interesting to me, I guess. But
Yeah.
so,
Just be careful about the people who think they know.
True.
yeah, I just, it's kind of over my head, and I pay a guy to help with finances. And
That's fair.
yeah, I'd rather just try to make it and save it, and that's it. So, well, guys, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Real quick, I want to thank our sponsors, 1356 Public House, Reuben Brown, our division sponsors, Ketting Ice Center, Corner Pub and Grill, and Cardinal Blinds and Shutters. We also have sponsors in Logix, STL Cycle Saloon, and Andy's Frozen Custard. We've got a few more podcasts coming at you in the next couple of weeks. It's actually going to start getting kind of frequent with season 20 just around the corner. I mean, we're a little over 3 months away from the season, so it's coming up fast. We're gonna have captain interviews. I'm gonna have Peter Light on to do a top 20 review when that is finished. And then we've got division draw on February 20th at 1356 Public House. So stay tuned, see where everybody lines up, what the divisions are going to be, and maybe what games are going to be interesting on the schedule there. So again, Gus, Scott, I appreciate you guys coming on. Any final words for your fans out there?
No, thank you, Brian, for all you do for the league, and yeah, we can't thank you enough. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
You got it, guys. Well, thank you, and we'll see you guys in just a couple weeks. Adios.